Have you been feeling tired and a little brain fog and especially noticing hair shedding? If so, we would love to talk to you about iron. So I'm Jen Overbeck, I'm a naturopathic doctor.
I'm Nicole. I own Elm, specializing in scalp health and overall whole body health.
So we are here in Nicole's beautiful salon where you can see specializes to just everything, not only hair. You've got all the nature outside, all the calming in here, which is wonderful for nervous system regulation and just feeling really taken care of.
Yeah, good.
But we've been talking a lot about nutrient deficiencies, and the most common one that we're seeing affecting hair health is iron.
Yeah, iron seems to come up often. Someone that struggles with like having iron in my body and storage, like as we have done my blood work, realizing that that was something that had been a long time kind of struggle or challenge of mine. Learning more about how it shows up on the scalp, how it's affecting hair growth, how quickly it sheds, and just kind of the overall vitality of how the hair is like coming in and staying strong. So
what do you see if somebody comes in with hair loss? How do you think iron? What makes you think that?
Yeah, so there's a couple different ways that I can start to narrow down what it is that's disrupting the anagen, that growth phase. Pattern, so where it's shedding on the scalp gives pretty good indicators. When it's iron related, we don't see it localized, like recession area in the front hairline, on the crowner part. That's going to be more hormonal disruption, things like that. But when it's overall shedding throughout the head, there isn't really like pattern or localization, then we know it's typically a mineral. The other couple of indicators are brittle hair. So when the oxygen isn't able to get to that follicle to feed it, then the hair starts to shrink. So we'll notice the diameter of the hair start to get a little bit finer. But even just simple things like wearing a ponytail repetitively or brushing in a certain kind of way will start to break the hair if it's brittle and not so strong.
So it's really interesting, and it makes sense why it would be all over, diffuse, and not just a single spot. Hair follicles are very metabolically active, so they require oxygen consistently, and the thing that carries oxygen throughout your body is iron. So meanwhile, you could have normal hemoglobin and hematocrit on your blood test, but still be experiencing iron-related hair loss if your iron stores aren't high enough to support both everything that is needed for survival, plus what your body considers a little bit of like accessories, like your hair and skin and nails will become really weak, brittle, and you'll see signs of it when the hair follicles, do they shrink or does anything change with them?
Yeah, so mostly we'll notice that the scalp under the microscope is very easily reactive. So if we're using something that has a little clove, a little salicylic acid, anything that's going to be like changing that pH, it's fairly reactive fairly fast. Dryness, tightness, and then a lot of times it'll be itchiness. So for some folks, it's like this blanket answer of it's winter, so the air is dry. And honestly, it's, it could be a factor, but if that's, your scalp tends to be perpetually itchy, feeling a bit tight and reactive, but you don't have always the flakiness or the buildup, that would be an indicator of some other things. It may very well be iron. But okay, I've had a guest come in and say, I've had my blood work done. It says my iron is in normal range. What do you look for?
So that normally if somebody says that, they're saying I'm not anemic. So my hemoglobin, so my red blood cells have enough hemoglobin in them according to normal lab ranges. I don't just look at that because it can be misleading. I look at your storage iron, which reflects like a longer term, and that's called ferritin. So even on labs, when you look at storage iron, ferritin might be considered normal if it's above 20 or 30, depending on what lab you do, but you can be very symptomatic and iron deficient without anemia if it is below that range. But even if you are, say, 35 or 40 or 50, you still may experience hair loss. So a lot of hair experts, scalp experts, and dermatology clinics and naturopathic doctors for sure, will want to push for getting your ferritin level, if we can, up more towards like 50 to 70 or above 70 for proper hair health.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because iron doesn't just affect hair follicles, but another thing that iron is important for is thyroid conversion, which is another thing. Hypothyroidism is another big cause of hair thinning.
Yeah.
So even if I've had people come to me and they're hypothyroid, they have a diagnosis of either just regular hypothyroidism or Hashimoto's, and still feeling exhausted all the time, even though T4 levels look fine, TSH looks fine. But then if I dig a little bit deeper and I look at ferritin and I look at free T3 levels, that's what your body actually feels of the thyroid hormone. If your ferritin level is low, even if you have enough T4 coming in through a medicine, you don't convert it to what your body actually feels. So having low ferritin can make you feel hypothyroid and actually be hypothyroid even if your labs don't show it. So that's something else that can contribute to hair loss, and I'm wondering also if that might be part of the itchiness or if that's completely unrelated.
Yeah, I'm imagining, like, through studying just about how it's like the oxygenation of
the
layers of the
scalp.
skin.
Yeah.
So I think it's the dryness and the irritation, the reactiveness is coming from probably a bit of like lack of blood flow potentially.
Yeah. Okay, totally makes sense.
So there's a scalp condition called telogen effluvium, and what's happening essentially is that your hair, 90% of the hair on your head is in anagen phase, so it's growing all at the same rate, but each follicle is at a different phase. So it could be year 2, year 5, year 7, depending on genetics. But what will happen is when you don't have enough iron storage, your body starts to pivot that and put it into places that are necessary, like you were saying, for survival. And so hair, skin are not as vital, but we're seeing how that lack of iron and oxygen going to the follicle, the nutrient isn't able to get through there and really kind of boost and flourish that hair. So it starts to shrink, and then it'll prematurely start to shed. So that telogen is that resting phase, which will, as it's shrinking, will end up kind of disconnecting from the hair, and then you've got a ton of excess shed. Is what happens. So about 3 to 6 months is usually, so 3 months before you notice the shed is really when things are starting to ramp up and be problematic. Then that hair shed, and then it'll take a good 3 to 6 months of supplementation, blackstrap molasses, doing these iron-rich foods, and potentially adding in supplements like you've shared with me, to then see things start to balance out. So time is also an element there too.
So working with women and talking about iron is really interesting because iron also influences so many hormonal issues. And so low iron can be like the cause of a hormone issue, or it can also be the effect of a hormone issue.
Okay.
So if you're talking about somebody with thinning hair, heavy periods may come along with that too. And what's so interesting is I would think nature would want to, if you have low iron, conserve your iron and bleed less, but that's not how it works. Without enough iron, like the uterus capillaries become fragile and people will bleed more. You may bleed a lot more when you're anemic, and that causes further iron loss. So it can be harder to replace just naturally with food if you have heavy bleeding that causes anemia, or you have anemia first that can lead to your body feeling stressed out all the time, because low iron means low oxygen delivery. Low oxygen delivery puts you in like the sympathetic mode, not sympathetic like I feel you, but like I feel so stressed out. And what that will then end up doing is just making you feel like you can't, I don't know, get through to that next. I just lost my train of thought there.
Yeah. I feel like energized is like how it comes across to me.
Yeah.
Like just feeling like energy, movement, strong, like those kind of things.
Yes, okay, now I remember. Okay, so then when you feel very stressed out, when your body feels very stressed out and your cortisol level goes up, maybe because your iron level is down, then you're probably less likely to ovulate and make good progesterone, which if you don't make enough progesterone, your bleeding is going to be heavier also. So iron deficiency can cause hormone problems and be the, effect of them too. So we see that a lot in perimenopause. You notice a lot of hair loss, I bet, like postpartum, when people it's a stressful thing in the body, but some women lose a lot of blood.
Yep.
So, but thinking about hair loss, and if you're trying to replenish it, you may go through, if you have heavy periods, parts of the month where you're more anemic than the other. So I wonder if that also just makes it confusing for the shedding cycle with women.
That could be.
I don't know.
I'm not sure.
Once a month you're becoming more iron deficient, and then your body's trying to recover.
Yeah. So I think things that you can look for at home if iron might be something that you're curious if that is problematic. Think of like tight, itchy scalp. If you put different things on and it tends to be quite reactive, that's usually a pretty good indicator. If you're noticing shedding throughout the hair, but not like specifically localized, like in certain areas, it's just kind of throughout, you're noticing that. And or if it's starting to feel like it's breaking easier. So some of the same routines that you've been doing for years, months, weeks, and suddenly you're noticing around your face, around the top, it's just not as resilient. That could be a pretty good indicator too, that the nutrients that are feeding it just aren't quite adequate.
Yeah.
What are things that they could be looking for before blood work maybe?
Yeah, okay, so symptoms of low oxygen throughout your body. That's why iron is going to impact everything from your energy, your ability to sleep. So iron deficiency can also, you may experience insomnia or restless legs. Brain fog is huge if your brain's not getting enough oxygen. Just not being able to wake up feeling refreshed.
Yeah, I definitely have that.
You have that.
Experienced that, for sure.
Yeah, like palpitations, shortness of breath when you're going upstairs, also if you're not able to get enough oxygen. And a lot of the symptoms can overlap with hypothyroidism or other nutrient deficiencies, so it's important to get that tested. Also, cold extremities, cold hands, cold feet, just feeling overall cold. There's so many different things.
Okay.
But it is really important to test, because even if you feel like you have these symptoms, taking iron without testing is a problem, or it can be a problem.
Okay.
If you're not actually anemic, taking iron is a problem because too much iron is oxidative and inflammatory.
Okay.
So it's a lot of prenatals have iron in them, but if you don't need the iron, then you're maybe causing yourself issues, inflammatory issues that you wouldn't otherwise have. So what I love to do when I'm looking at iron is we test first. Well, sometimes you look and you see people that have the iron deficiency symptoms in the hair, and then I can work on their internal terrain, get them lab tested, get them repleted with iron, send them back to you, and you can actually see the difference on the scalp.
Yeah. That's a really cool way to measure it too, where we're looking at things, you're noticing things that are external. So with a microscope, we're able to measure a bit more of that and see some of those indicators, but there's not a magic potion for this. This is internally, this is nutrients, these are vitamins and minerals and things that need to be addressed so that you can be optimal health. So what I have loved about this is like being able to see some of those things and maybe suggest some things topically if it's appropriate, but truly be able to then go back to the root of the problem so that it's not a dependency on a certain type of minoxidil or a certain kind of something rather.
When you have people come to you, probably, I'm sure you have, saying, I've tried all the things and it doesn't work.
Right. So now it feels like such a cool resource to say, okay, let's shift you over to Dr. Jen, let's get some blood work, let's see what's going on, and actually have like numbers, tangible things. And then you're so great about being able to give functional ideas and tactical takeaways too, of like, these are some really great, sources as far as like diet can go. These are some great ways to supplement. You've helped me a lot with that. And so then giving ourselves that 3-month, 4-month window, and then being able to check back on the microscope and say, what are we noticing? What do we see? Is it working? And we've got those numerical, reports back, so we can see that.
Got your pictures before and after.
Yes, so that's a great way to kind of tackle that, like externally, topically, but most importantly, internally.
If you don't mind me asking personal, what did you notice as your iron levels started to go up? Like, what changes did you see?
So as I'm exercising, I feel like I'm able to catch my breath quicker, or maybe not be out of breath as fast. My cycles are much more vibrant as far as like shed, so that was a really cool indicator too, that things were different than they had been in the past. Typically I feel like I'm fairly balanced like on my scalp, and so hair loss hasn't been an issue. But with you saying more about like the hypothyroid aspect of it, that's also another thing that I've gone through. Pregnancies, postpartum, things like that have been measurable. Certainly the not being able to sleep, and then when you wake up you're not so rested, so just having more kind of like balance throughout, I think, is what I notice most.
Well, because it does, it's so beautiful. I mean, we need oxygen for every cell, so correcting iron deficiency can be huge, and something that people want to be fit and active and healthy and energized, but just can't do it. Sometimes it's not just telling them to push harder. It's saying,
we have to support.
We need to build you up before you feel like you can push.
I love it. Cool. All right, we hope this was super helpful. Let us know if you have any other questions. I'm thinking of tackling maybe magnesium next.
Ooh,
so
yay.
We'll circle back then.
Okay, bye.